afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Artists of Color. And I am your host, Elaine Hall-Corbin, and I'm glad you're with me this afternoon. And I have a special guest. And before I introduce her, I want to talk about an artistic program that I know of that's been going around, so far as I know, around Massachusetts, but I believe it's been going around the entire country. And it's regarding art and violence transformed. There are different exhibits going around the country. And one of my guests today, who is also a very special friend, is artist Johnetta Tinker. Johnetta, thanks for coming and being with us this afternoon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it too.
Oh, yeah. It's like I went to see the exhibit, and we talked a little bit about the exhibit. Then you and I had a talk about the exhibit.
Yes.
But you know, I've known you such a long time, and you've been artist for what, over 30 years?
Longer than that.
Longer than that.
Yes. Ever since I was in the 3rd grade, I wanted to be an artist.
Yes. Let's
That has
talk
to come
about
from,
that.
That had to come from the gene pool.
Okay, tell us about it. Probably did. So
Yes.
let's talk about your gene pool.
Yes.
Tell me, you know,
Well,
how did you?
I have a cousin, a second cousin on my mother's father's side of the family who's an artist. And from what I heard, my grandfather was very creative and talented. So when I decided I wanted to be an artist at a very young age, everybody was like, okay, we know where that came from.
Yeah, we got it.
It was just, you just know from, I was very lucky because my brothers and sisters said they didn't know what they wanted to do. I always knew what I wanted to do. Now, how that was going to manifest itself, we didn't know. But because my mother was a hairdresser, which I felt was very creative.
Yeah.
So we didn't know what that, she would do hair and I would sit there and watch her and watch, but she would always help us with our art projects and always did art projects with us and always took us to the museums.
Oh.
So I just fell in love with it from a very, very young age.
What was your very first art project?
I remember that one of my mother's friends took us to the circus, and I must have been about in the 3rd grade, and one of the teachers told us to draw something, and I drew an elephant with his foot on that little stool, or whatever that was, and she was so fascinated that I did that she took it around to all the different teachers and showed it in the classroom. Unfortunately, I don't have it, and I felt so proud. I said, wow, I got something going on here.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And then someone asked me later on, they said, how did you know you wanted to be an artist? I said it was the only thing that I could do, that I felt that I made a really great impact and I felt that I was accomplished in it. So I always got an A in art. If I didn't get an A in anything else, I got an A in art.
Oh my goodness. See, that's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. You have done many things. I know for a long time, artistic-wise, you were the program director over at the Isabella Gardner Museum.
Yeah, I was the director of community programs at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum for a while. Yes.
Yeah. How did that come about? In other words, I know what it was about because I went to a few of your events there. But I mean, how did you manage to get that spot?
Okay, now this is I always tell people be careful of what they wish for. Okay, because I remember when I was in middle school, I would take trips. There was this special program that students who were interested in the arts would get out of school early, like one day a week, and they would take us to the museum. We'll go over to the museum. We did art project. We did art looking, and then we would do an artwork project connected to what we saw in the museum. And I went into the museum, and I focused on this painting by John Singer Sargent, and I can't remember the name of it right now. And I looked at it, and it was something about that painting that just made me say, wow. this is wonderful to be an artist. And then I said, looked around the museum and I said, wouldn't this be a wonderful place to work?
It's like you said, be careful what you wish for.
So I started first, I started first just working at the Museum of Fine Arts like 1 day a week. Then they took me on for 2 days a week. And then the job for the director of the education at the Gardner Museum came across my desk, and I didn't want to do it because I thought it would be too much work, and I still wanted to be an artist, leave enough room. So I gave it to a friend, and I said, Stacy, if you get this job, you have to hire me. Joking. Well, she got the job and she hired me. So I was working at first 2 days a week at the MFA and 2 days a week at the Gardner Museum. And then they took me on at the Gardner Museum for 4 days a week, and I stayed there ever since. And I was very fortunate for 4 days a week because it gave me that long weekend to still be able to do my art. And that was very important. So I was, blessed in that way. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I've seen many of your different works, and I mean, I can't even begin to even really remember. I remember one year at Roxbury Open Studios, and that was the very first time I came to your house at the studio, and you had this huge, I don't even think it was a painting. I think it was like multimedia, because you're the type of artist that goes and finds things.
Oh, yeah.
And you use, you use what you find and what you see in your art. What type of art is that?
Mixed medium.
So you just don't, I always thought mixed medium, believe it or not, so this is my dilemma, I thought mixed medium was different types of art, like painting or drawing, but with you, you go out and find twigs and trees and branches, whatever you see.
Whatever I see. The other day I picked up an old hubcap. Now what I'm going to do with that, I don't know. And recently I just cleaned up my studio because I had so much stuff in there. I said, some of this stuff has to go. And as soon as I let it go, I find a reason to, that it's like, why did I get rid of it? But yes, it's mixed medium, and I would find glass, like a car, if a window from a car was broken. I had in my car a dustpan in a room, and I'd sweep it up, put it in a plastic bag, and take it and incorporate it into my work.
See?
And, twigs, things like that. And that just gives it another dimension. Right. And I do it in some works, in other works I don't. It depends on my vision and what I'm thinking about at that time. And sometimes I'll look at it and say, it needs a little something, or other times you have to know when to let it go, that this is it. And something is about the spirits or something like that will tell you. Because sometimes I would say, I'm finished with this work. I go to bed, get up the next morning, and they'll say, no, you're not finished yet.
Right.
You're not finished yet,
Yes.
and you have to keep working, and then finally it will tell you, when you're finished. Yes, when you're done.
When you were talking at the museum, you were talking about the exhibit, and you were telling us about your dreams. And your dreams are incorporated into your artwork, and how you keep a pen and a pad of paper by your to jot down things. And that actually, I'm mentioning that because we're going to get into the exhibit. And you talked so much about that exhibit and how it came about, and the different, the different works, different pieces that you did. And there's a little story behind that.
Sure.
You met, Barry came to your studio. Let's talk about that.
Well, the story is that I started doing this works because people will say to me, when I'm doing my work, they'll say, well, where are you exhibiting? I said, you can't wait. You have to keep working. You just can't say, I'm going to have an exhibition and not be prepared. You have to be prepared. So in order to be prepared, things can't be in your head. They have to be on paper or on canvas. So I just work. And so what happened was is last year at the Juneteenth celebration at the National
Yup.
Center, I had taken some pictures of some of the works that I had already done, and I was showing them to Barry, and he says, "Oh, I like this," Barry Gaither, and he says, I like this one. He says, "How many do you have?" And I said, "I think I have about 12 working on like the 13th one." And he says, "That's wonderful, and I want you to have this exhibition here, probably in the late winter or early spring." And he said, "By the way, I want 7 more."
You
And I
said,
said, "Oh
what?
my goodness, 7." Did he say 7?
He said
He
7.
said 7. And so, but that was good because it made me really dig deeper into my thoughts. And what happens is my process is very strange, and it's not strange to artists, but some people might think
who wouldn't know.
Would say this is strange, but I will see something or, on television or read something in a book, because in the summertime I'm snatching books off the shelf and reading, or just I do a lot of PBS. I look at a lot of things, and just going out in the world and looking and seeing what's happening. And what happens is that I'll go to bed and I'll have a dream. And it doesn't happen all the time, but the majority of my works come from my dreams. So that's why I have to keep a pencil and a pad by my bed just to jot down a dream memory,
Okay.
because if I don't, it'll go away. So with this particular series of works, and a lot of times I work in series, I went to sleep and I must have woken up in the night and I wrote down Black LM. And I couldn't figure out what the devil I was thinking about. And then I saw something on television. I said, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
And that's how I came up with this series of works. Yeah.
I'm not even going to ask you what your inspiration was, because I know that.
Yes.
The spiritual longing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the exhibit.
Yes.
Correct? And did you get that from a dream? Or did it come from the works itself?
Both.
Okay.
And sometimes I would start a project and I don't know what I'm going to do. And it just reveals itself some kind of way. So when I was thinking about Black Lives Matter, I was thinking about the violence and what people had to endure, and not just the individual, but the family, the community. Because you think about, this is a human being. And this is a person who, in their youth, you have a lot of hopes and desires for. And not only is the family suffering, but the whole community is suffering, because you don't know, this person could have been a doctor, lawyer, whatever. You don't know what would have happened if they had lived. And so I looked at the whole unit and thought, not only is the mother and the father and the uncles and the aunts suffering, but we are all suffering behind this.
Yes.
And that's why I said spiritual longing in the aftermath of violence, because not only you think about it in terms of what happens to this person when they're no longer here. What happens to the family and their suffering and their longing for this child that's no longer here. And how does this impact the whole community? It impacted me a lot.
Because it impacted you as an artist, and it does impact the whole community.
It does, yes.
You know, we all, I go around and I see, these poles and the things that they leave the candles and things around, and sometimes you see people coming back to that spot and they're putting, candles or flowers or teddy bears or whatever and you realize it does. You might not know that child, but it still impacts, because you're going to hear whispers or you're going to hear something about that person.
Right.
You know?
And then you think about the family and the pain that
The
they're,
loss.
yeah, and the loss and the pain.
That is,
And
that
that's
is the
what
pain.
this whole, and I think the pieces that Barry asked me to do, the 7 pieces really, embodies
Oh,
that whole spirit of
all
what was
right.
happening with the families. Yes.
yeah, that is where, we've got the exhibit right here with us, and I want to talk about each of the pieces that you've done,
Okay.
and give we can let my audience know about it. Is it, by the way, is it still up at the museum?
I think it is, yes.
Have you done the talk yet?
Not yet, but I think we're going to do it soon.
Good, good. So yeah, we're going to talk about the exhibit, and you can explain to everybody what each piece means, because I want people to know not only what the exhibit means, but what you did in putting that piece together, beginning with this one.
Okay, that piece is called All God's Children Have Wings.
Yep.
And I want to show that you see death, you don't see violence. There's no violence in this piece.
Right.
But it's the spirit rises and goes on to start to get their wings and going to the Holy Spirit. And so that's what this piece is about. And in that you see images of the spirit and the animal guardians, because I love turtles.
You do.
And turtles are my guardians of, because turtles, they are protectors. They protect themselves, they go into their shell.
Right.
And they come out, so they're protectors. And they're kind of leading the spirit to where it should be. And as you can see, they're slowly getting their wings and going to the next phase of their life. They're transitioning.
Okay. Wow.
Yes. And I mean, we could definitely see what this is
It's all
about.
about.
This
Yes,
is
we
what
can.
we all
This
see on
is
TV.
violence.
This isn't violence, but this is not only violence. This is people with no guns, no ammunition. I wanted them to look like they were nude because you don't see, ammunition or or anything on them. But you see someone with a gun. That's, and they're running away, and they're getting shot.
And they're
the
like you
back.
said, they have no
weapons.
but they're getting shot.
But they're getting shot. And the fear. You see the fear.
Yeah, I noticed that
The fear.
when I first saw that piece.
Yes.
I said, what?
And why are they getting shot?
Shot.
They don't have any weapons.
They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
That piece reminds me of Ferguson,
Right.
that young man.
Yes. Of
He didn't
course.
have a weapon.
Yeah. Most
Yeah.
of them didn't.
Most of them don't.
Mhm.
90% of them don't.
Right. Yeah. And they're young people.
Yes.
They're very young.
And that's the biggest thing. They're very young. To me, they're babies still.
Yeah.
They're babies still. And it's like, oh my God.
And we could definitely see the violence in this one. And this piece kind of was not planned, but it just showed up like that because I was trying to, this is printmaking, and what I was trying to do was to save a little paper. So I cut out these stencils and I put them on the paper. And I figured this piece, I would cut this piece and cut the other piece and put them in 2 different pieces. And when I pulled the print, I saw that and I said, oh my goodness, I don't have to do another thing
thing
with
to this.
It's just all, that's why I'm saying sometimes things just show up.
Okay.
And you just
like you said, and it's done.
it's done. It's
There's
done.
nothing else for you to
I
do.
didn't have to do a lot with
No,
that.
you didn't. No, you really
It just
didn't.
told me what it truly was. And this is the face of, I felt a grandparent or a senior person.
Okay, yes.
And again, you see the sadness. And this is one of the pieces that, Barry said you need to make 7 more.
Oh,
And
so
that's
this
what-
is when you got to this one, and that's
I
when
started focusing more on the families and their face and profiles and images. So you could kind of see the sorrow in his eyes, but I used a lot of texture because I wanted it to look a little abstract, but I also wanted it to, so that you could see the image of the person in their face. So, yes.
in,
Oh, that's one of the pieces that I call confrontation. It's another piece goes with it, and I call it a diptych, but that's one side of it. And one person is kind of challenging the other person, and the other person is holding their ground. But still, even though he's being challenged, I'm going to hold my ground, but I'm going to show dignity. I don't have to go to where you're going with this.
Right.
So if you want to fight, I'm going to hold my ground.
I'm just going to.
But I'm not going to be the one that's going to start it.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
And that's the person who's holding his ground.
Yes. I could see that when I first saw it. He's just.
And what's interesting with this piece is that they're the same stencil. I just turned them backwards like a mirror.
Oh, okay. See, you never told me that part before.
One person going more forward in the printmaking and one standing up. But if you look at it, it's the same stencil. And this piece, this was a very interesting piece because I printed a sheet of paper and it had this texture on it. And when I picked up the paper, I saw the image. It wasn't drawn or anything. I just saw the image, and I took a pair of scissors and cut it out.
Oh.
And it was just there. It revealed itself to me, and I said, I don't need to put anything else with this. I don't need to show, eyes, nose, mouth.
No, you don't.
It's like silhouette.
Yes,
and
that's what I thought of it when I first saw it.
I just saw it out of a sheet of a piece of paper that had that texture on it that I printed. And I said, wow. And I said, let me do it now because if I come back in a couple of minutes, it's not going to be there. I'm not going to see it the same way. So I just took a pair of scissors and cut it out.
What textures did you use in this?
Oh, wow. Again, we're talking about found objects.
Yes.
So I will use like anything that comes off a fruit, like if it's a basket that has the fruit in it, I'll take that and cut it and print it. Any type of like earrings, old earrings that I have, pieces of cloth, old doilies. I have used those. In the background back there, you're looking at rubbings because this is mixed medium. And so I took paper and anything that had texture in my house, I was going around and making rubbings from it. So in the background, those are rubbings. That's why you call it mixed medium, because there's several different ways of doing art in this particular piece. And I wanted it to be simple, but I also wanted to have a very, very strong image. Of course, this is, again, hands up, don't shoot. So this is, people going out and fighting for our rights. Hands up, don't shoot. And we saw a lot of that.
Yes, we did.
And I just and these pieces are all in black and white because I was doing a lot of color and I wanted to transition into black and white. And we'll talk about John Biggers a little bit later, but John Biggers always said, in a print, if you get the darkest black and the whitest white and all the colors and textures in between, you are looking at color.
Really?
Isn't that fascinating? I didn't understand what he was saying at first until I was like, what is this man talking about? But he said the blackest black and the whitest white and all the colors and gradations and textures in between, you might as well be, your eye is looking at color. And I thought that was very powerful.
It is. Yeah. And it's very funny because sometimes, and not in this piece, but sometimes, when you're looking at black or you're looking at white, sometimes you can see other colors.
And you don't,
you don't
need color all the time.
All the time.
Because the power is in the image,
right?
The imagery. And color is a wonderful thing. But black and white, it's where I started as a youth, and that's where I am now. Yes. And again, this piece is very interesting because, again, this piece was supposed to be like hands up, don't shoot. And I had put it down on my floor.
Yes.
Tell
this
story.
Here we go again. Tell this story.
And it was horizontal.
Yep.
And all these pieces are done with rice paper, so it's very, very thin. And I had it all laid out the way I wanted it to look. And for me to get, because my studio is a small space, I'll climb up on a ladder and look down on it and even take a mirror. It sounds strange, but it works for me.
Yes, it does.
And look at it so I could get even more distance. And I was coming down off the ladder, and I had a board on the sidewall, and it fell over. And everything went.
Nice little gust of wind.
A little gust of wind, and I don't think it was by accident.
Nothing.
And came along and took everything from horizontal to vertical, and I was so upset because it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm a night owl. I'll stay up all night and do art. So I was so upset, and I just left it the way it was. I went upstairs and went to bed, got up the next morning, saw it, and I said, here it is, glue it together.
Yep.
Just as
That's
is.
what it was meant to be.
It was meant to be that.
Nothing else to do.
It's interesting.
Yeah, remember that? See?
One of those things that you don't have control over. It has
No,
control over
you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about this one.
Oh, this again is a piece that I've worked on, and I wanted to think about mainly, again, what happens after death. I believe in life after death. I believe that the soul does not die, it goes on. And even though we may not know what happens, but I feel as though there is still a continuous.
We continue.
We continue.
We continue.
I
Yes, we do.
feel as though we continue. And that's what this is about, life continuing. And I thought that was, very, very important.
I love it.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, and you could kind of see,
Yeah, you
the
can.
child with the angel with the halo and life continuing.
Absolutely. And this afternoon, my guest is Johnetta Tinker. Thank you for joining me today, Johnetta.
Oh, this has been wonderful.
Oh, it has, surely has been. We have been talking about the art exhibits Spiritual Longing in the Aftermath of Violence, which is part of the Violence Transformed exhibit. And I believe, again, correct me if I'm wrong, these are exhibits that are being done across the country, correct?
Yes.
I thought so, okay. I actually thought it was just in Massachusetts.
No, I think it's
But it is across the country. Okay. Well, let's get back to the exhibit because I was having such a good time.
Okay.
Tell me about this one. And I had the names down, but I don't remember them.
Well, I'm trying to remember them too. I've done so many pieces.
I know
But
Yeah.
I could tell you what this is about, and this is kind of like the matriarch of the family.
Oh, okay.
And I was thinking of her as being the person, of course, when a mother loses her child is one thing, but when a grandparent
Loses.
is another. And I wanted her to look like she was queenly, and and I wanted her in profile, and these things just kind of happened for me, and I'm very meticulous on how I want things done, and so this is a collage, and for people who don't know what a collage is, I tear paper up and I put it back together. I look at things that I want to use and things that might be in a sheet of paper, and it might be only one part of it I want to use, and the other part I don't. I have scraps of paper all over the place. It's crazy. And so this particular piece, it's different kind of textures from different things that I've used around the house. And you can see some of those textures.
Yeah, I can.
Well, in the bottom half.
That looks like a fruit basket.
Fruit basket.
I knew it.
Okay, you could see some of them. Bubble wrap.
Yep.
Things like that. And I print from them on sheets of paper, and then I tear them up, and then I glue them back together to make an image or design or whatever. And so this particular piece, the face I just tore it out. I did not cut it. It was torn.
Oh.
Yes. And it's layered on one thing on top of the other, even though it's two-dimensional. I've would layer one piece and say, that's not working, but I like this little section over here. I'll put another layer on top. And I got down to the point where I would cut a piece, and it was very, very small, and the only way I could get glue on the piece is using a toothpick and putting it in the glue and just kind of putting it on.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things happening that you might not see, but I saw it.
You can see because absolutely.
Yeah. This one is a piece, this was one of my early pieces that I showed Barry Gaither. And this is a piece that I think it's called A Watchful Eye.
I think so.
This piece, I thought of a combination of two things. A bird, like a hawk or an eagle. A hawk in Egyptian mythology, Horus hawk.
Right.
And also the square body that would mimic kind of like a cell phone. Because if it wasn't for video and that camera and video, a lot of these things that are happening would not have been documented.
That's right.
And we wouldn't know the real truth. And again, I looked at this piece right here as being the mother. And what happened with this is that it's so interesting. I think that the spirit was with me in doing all of these pieces, and that's when I knew I was on the right track, because those pieces that look like hands, I just tore paper and said, oh, wouldn't this look nice here?
Really?
And then, of course, sometimes I'll walk away from something, come back and say, those kind of look like hands to me, stretched out. Wow.
And they do.
And I didn't plan on that. I was just trying to get a contrast of black and white. And you can see the doilies, and you can see other textures. This piece here was the most haunting for me.
It haunted me too.
Yes, and I didn't really want to specify exactly what was happening. I wanted people to take their time and look and come up with their own idea of what was going on, because there could be several scenarios in this particular piece. And a lot of times, people do not take a long time looking at art. They'll look at it for a few minutes and walk away and feel as though. I wanted people to engage in looking at this and saying, what do I see what's happening in this particular work of art? And I've heard several people come up with different scenarios, and they'll ask me if they were right.
If they were right.
And I say, it's all about what you see. It's not about
whether you think it's right or
I think it's right or wrong. There's Mr. Crite, my mentor. There's a very interesting story about Mr. Crite and how I came to know Mr. Crite. And I was, we'll have to go back to the beginning where I was at Texas Southern University, and I was John Biggers was my mentor and my teacher and my mentor. And I was graduating from college, and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going back to Boston, because I was raised in Boston, even though my family is from Houston, Texas. My parents came here before I was born with the Great Migration. And John Biggers told me, he said, when you get back to Boston, I want you to contact Alan Rohan Crite. Did I do that? No. No, because I was what am I going to say to this man, this giant of a person? I was too shy, which I am not anymore, to do that, to approach him. But, as it was supposed to happen, and I met Alan. When I met Alan, he wrote me this wonderful letter, because it was a time that some tragedy had happened in my life. And he wrote this wonderful letter, and I was supposed to be in this art exhibition. And I was saying, I don't think I could do this. And he wrote a letter, and he didn't know me at that time. He wrote a letter, and he says, I want you to be in the exhibition. This is something that you should do. And I still have that letter to this day.
Beautiful.
And so, he and after that we became great friends, and one of the best people in the world. I've been so fortunate to have him in my life. Yes.
Yep. And that's one of his pieces.
Yeah, it's one of his pieces of many pieces.
Now, I get confused with this piece because I think it's on Lenox Street, the other end of
The other
Lenox
end,
Street.
probably, he
I think this is-
documented the south end, yes.
I think this is St. Augustine's and St. Martin's.
It probably is. It probably
You
is.
know?
Is that schools out? I'm thinking, I'm not sure
Yeah.
the name of it. But yes, to see these pieces live and living in his house was just something that
Amazing, I'll bet.
it was so amazing. And to see him work was something. He was a genius. People don't understand the genius
Tell
of this
me
man.
about what you-
Because, I mean, I had the chance to travel with him to China.
You did.
And that was a long time ago. But, you know, Alan Cripe was always, he would call his sketchbook his brains. He would always say, where are my brains? Where are my brains? He was like, your brains are over there. Okay, give me my brains. But he was constantly sketching. And it really encouraged me to say, I have to do more art. I have to concentrate a lot more on art and not, you know, going out and partying. But we were all getting ready to go out and party. And we were on a bus earlier that day, and Mr. Cripe saw something. And he took out his sketchbook, and he did something that looked like a scribble. He had his own shorthand.
Oh.
And it looked like a scribble to me. I'm like, what is he doing? So we left him at the hotel. We went out and did whatever we did and came back. And that piece, when he finished it, it looked exactly like what we saw when we were riding on the bus. And I just said, this is amazing, just simply amazing. He finished that piece in that time. And I said, okay, instead of us going out and partying, we should have been
here.
doing some work. But, you know, that's the way
What were
life
your
is.
takeaways from being with Mr. Cripe?
Oh, there's so many. I would just say one of the things is that I saw his body of work that went on and on and on and on forever. And I just said, I don't think in my lifetime that I could do as much work as he's done, or maybe I have. I don't think so. But he had his work since he was pieces of his work when he was 10 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
And when he had a visit to the Gardner Museum, and he drew this image of the courtyard, and he still had that. I don't have any of my drawings when I was 10 years old. I regret that. Some of my friends have some of my drawings. They'll say, because I used to draw and give it away to friends. I didn't,
You didn't want
it was like, you want it, you have it here. And some of my friends said, I still have that work when you were like in middle school and you gave it to me. And he said, I'm not giving it up. I said, I gave it to you. It was a gift. Why would I want it back? But I think that was the main thing, just to really, I had to really think about. It was so many things. We had so many conversations, looking at TV together, but we'd be on the phone looking at TV together.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say.
And so many conversations that, I just couldn't, it would take me years to really talk about everything.
I remember meeting him just one time, and I was fascinated.
Yeah, he's fascinating. He's
him.
a genius of a man.
Yes.
A lovely man, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, John Biggers,
Biggers.
Amazing, another amazing person. That's why I say I've been so blessed in my life. I went to Texas Southern University, and he was the head of the department at Texas Southern, and he was one of my drawing teachers and painting teachers. I remember the first time I was in a drawing class with him. And of course, I went to Texas Southern with very well prepared. I knew about perspective. I knew depth of field. I knew everything because I was an art major in high school. So I had the technical skills.
Okay.
So, but it was all studio technical skills. So I could do, portraits. I could do still lifes. I could do all of that in the studio. What John Biggers did was now I'm in Houston, Texas, and it gets to be 90 degrees outside. And we're in an air-conditioned studio, and he knew I was struggling because he said, you have to go to nature for everything. Anything you look at, you have to go to nature. He said, put your hands in the soil, feel it, you know?
Oh,
And
wow.
I was, and the other students that came to Texas Southern didn't have the technical skills that I had, but they could just come out with anything out of their head and create something where I had to have like a still life in front of me or image.
So that was the technical.
Yes, and so what happened was he took me out of the classroom, air-conditioned classroom, took me out, said, here, take your papers, take this bench or whatever, and put me in a ditch. There was no water in the ditch, but I was sitting in 90-degree weather in a ditch. And he said, draw what you see in that ditch. Oh my goodness, I thought he was the craziest man in the world.
I guess so.
I'm sweating and everything, but I'll tell you, he said, you have to go to nature. You
That's
know?
what he meant.
And that's what he meant, you know. And I wasn't the only one he did that. He did that with the whole class. But I
Wow.
just felt as though I was like, oh, what is going
Going
on
on with
here?
this man here?
It was wonderful. Yeah. And just to see him work, oh my goodness. I would sneak into his studio. Yes.
Come
I
on,
would,
tell that one too.
You know, and he always had his door open. It wasn't like, you know, we weren't
Yeah,
invited in, but we knew to be quiet. But anytime I got the chance, I would go into his studio and I would sit and watch him paint. And he would be painting on 3 canvases at one time. And I mean, going from one to the other. And I was like, how can he do that? And he knew I was there. But he never looked around, but he knew I was there because I was there a lot of times, along with other students, sometimes of me by myself, you know, because I just wanted to learn everything and to absorb everything. And I knew this was a time that nobody else could spend with him if I was there by myself with him. And so, and other students would come in and they would leave, but I just kind of lingered the longest. And he would say, Miss Tinker? And I said, yes. He said, do you know why I work on more than one painting at a time? And I just said, He said, because the paint is already mixed. Why you have to go back and mix paint over and over again? So if you work on 3 pieces at the same time, you get the job done.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I've tried to do that. I've gotten
I was
to
gonna ask
2.
you if you tried to do that.
I've gotten to 2, but I haven't gotten to 3 yet. So,
Yay.
yeah, very wise man. Gave us so many skills that, you know, I've learned. I mean, it was interesting because at Texas Southern University, you could go in and say, I'm a painter and I do drawings and paintings. And everything was classified as art. If you did clay, that was art. It wasn't crafts, it was art. If you did weaving, it was art. No matter what. And I tried to get out of a weaving class because I didn't want to do it. You know,
She said, I did not want to do it.
I did not want to do it, and I had no reasons. I thought it was hard, and it was not easy. And I just thought that I just wanted to paint. And he sat me down. He said, "You know one thing, Miss Tinker." He always called me Miss Tinker. He said, "Weaving is just like painting. You're just using different material. That's the same thing." He said, you're just using different material. He said, the same colors you blend when you use a paintbrush, you're blending with yarn. So you go in there and you take that weaving class and you be the best weaver you can be.
Were you the best weaver
You be the best one you can be. You know, if it was something I didn't, you go in there and you do it and you do your best. You be the best that you can be. And he said, because you don't know what's going to happen out there when you get a chance to go out in the world. And believe me, guess what? When I came back to Boston, guess what one of my first jobs was? To teach kids weaving.
Are you serious?
I am so serious.
Oh my goodness, where did you teach at?
It was at a, you know, kind of an after-school program.
Okay.
You know, and it was, I had to teach kids weaving. And I said, isn't this
interesting?
You know, so thankful.
So that's what Mr. Biggers meant.
You don't know what, you know, is going to be
What's
for
gonna-
you. Yeah, what's going to happen.
What was your takeaway with him?
You know, he had so many sayings, but one of the things he would always say, he said, you know one thing, you have downtown. He was talking about downtown anyway, Boston, Houston, and you got to get downtown. So he said, how do you get downtown? He said, You could take a bus, you could walk, you could drive, you could ride a motorcycle or whatever. He said, it doesn't matter how you get downtown. The main thing is that you have to get there.
Get there.
So,
It seems like what he's trying to, what I think he's trying to tell you is, to me, is to get where you're going to go, as far as like you as an artist, it doesn't matter how you get there, but you've got to get there.
You got to get there. You know, that's the main thing. And you might have to go this way and go that way, turns, you know, go in a rotary or whatever. The main thing is to get there.
Get there.
And that's what, you know, such great wisdom he imparted to all of us and all his students. That's just one thing. He had a whole lot of different things. You know, one time I was having problems trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and it was a printmaking course, and he had it was so funny, he had a horse's skull.
What?
Yeah, horse's skull. And he went and he put it down in front of me. He said, "Guess what, Miss Tinker?" I said, "Yeah, I want you to capture the grin." And in a horse's skull, there is a grin. And I want you to capture the grin. So I did do the drawing and made a print, and the print is called The Grin. So
I want you to
capture the grin. Yes.
On a horse's skull.
Yes, yes. And if you look at a skull of a horse, there is kind of like where the
You
mouth
know,
is.
you're right, there
is a
is.
grin. I
There
want you
really
to capture
is.
the grin. Yeah, it has such, you know, wonderful meaning. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you put when you put both of, to me, your mentors together, and your life as an artist, what comes to mind first?
The first thing that comes to mind with me is not to take no for an answer. Okay. You know, and there's a lot of roadblocks out there, and I would say this to anybody. If you are passionate about what you're doing, if you're serious about what you really want to do, you know, do not let anything stop you. Do not let anything stop you. And do not take no for an answer. And I think that's another reason why he said there's all kind of ways to get downtown. The main thing is to get there. Do not take no for an answer, because, you know, even though you may apply for something and not get the grant, or, you know, not get the job or something like that, I always found out if I kept working and kept my focus on what I wanted to do, there's another way of getting what I want. You know, it's just always staying true to yourself as an artist. He would always say, you know yourself, you know your heritage, you know your culture. Give it all the dignity that it deserves. And that's why I did this piece. I wanted to give these families
the dignity
that they deserve. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been having a great conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And we've talked about every single one of these pieces. And we've talked about your mentors, you know, and their works and what they've taught you. And to me, it's like, it's all there. And it's like you've got such wisdom coming through you when you do your work, because you've gotten it from others that have come before you.
Yes.
You know, and this exhibit, when I first saw it, I wasn't sure, but how I would perceive it. But I remember going back and forth at the museum, going back and forth and looking again and again at each of the different pieces, and I could begin to see. And then when we had the talk, that was very funny. You know, we never even got a chance to talk about that. Do you remember you mentioned in the reception, you talked about the talk?
Oh, the talk.
The talk.
Yes.
That we, as, you know, parents need to give our children, because we want them to come back. We want them to come back safe, and they need to know the talk.
Well, you know, when you give your young boys and girls,
yes,
the talk, then that gives them the control.
Right.
Because if you tell them how to behave in a certain situation, things do not get out of control.
That's true.
you hope.
Yes,
If
we hope.
everybody's
Is you-
using their,
if everybody's going on the same.
right,
Yep.
best practices, if everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
So my brother, who is an ex-police officer, he recently retired, he had to give his sons and my nephews and everybody the talk. And this is what you do. And he said, when you have to talk, and if you do what you're supposed to do, you have the control. Hopefully things do not get
out of control.
Yeah.
And I brought that up because looking at this exhibit that you've done and us talking about families and losing loved ones and especially losing children, you know, and that made me remember that, you know,
Right.
because you've got to. I mean, my daughter has done it with her sons,
Have?
but I never really did it. I think it's only because Aunt Elma did it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but you know, it's a fantastic, it's a beautiful, it's a very profound exhibit. You did a wonderful, wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
And it made me see community, family, and really seeing the issue of Black Lives Matter. And they really do, because we as a community. So I thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
having me
Johnetta
again.
Tinker
I had a
coming to
wonderful
visit.
time.
Yeah, I did too. I did too.
Yes.
You know, we're gonna keep in touch.
Yes.
Nobody can hear us.
Okay, good.